You guys probably noticed, those of you that are new today probably didn't know, but a couple of weeks ago and previously to that, the little entrance down there on the street where those cool boxes are with their planter numbers, yeah, that wasn't there. It was a really ugly bush. It was not beautiful. It was ugly. Oh, well, it is now. It's not ugly now. It's beautiful now. And it was, I mean, it's really cool if you come by at night. There's little solar-powered spotlights that light up the numbers. I'm like really impressed with that, right? It's super cool. It turned out really good. Usually, if I try any DIY projects, I'm more likely to end up on the fail page rather than the good page, right? But that turned out pretty good. And so we decided, hey, let's plant some stuff in there because plants make it look even better. And that was a whole lot of fun. I don't know if you came by one of the first Sundays when that flowers were actually in. 2 of the pots have flowers and 2 of them have sprouty things. I have no idea what those are, but longer and kind of reddish colored. And so the 2 pots that just had the little flowery things in them, the deer came by and they would pull them up and decide they didn't like them and drop them. And so all of those flowers are gone. And the tall, spiky things became their next target. We're like, well, maybe they won't mess with those. But sure enough, Trish has had to, on a couple of occasions, go down there and replant those spiky things. I don't think they're going to make it. To be honest with you, I don't think they've got enough time to like actually establish roots before the deer come by. And they don't eat it. They just pull it out. We don't like this here. And you know what it could be? I just thought of this. That old bush that was down there, they would eat on that old bush. Maybe they're just ticked off and they're like, serves you right for planting these gross flowers down here. It's a little bit like the garnish on your steak plate, you know? Why even bother with that? And so, anyway, it's just kind of a funny little thing, but I think it's important because as we're looking at Jesus' life, like Jesus came to start this uprising, not just culturally, and not just religiously, but personally with us in our hearts. He came to start an uprising. He wasn't one of those people that's like, here's some good teaching for you. I hope that goes well. No, he wants to change your life. And that's what he came for. And so if you're like me, you probably have had times when you feel like, man, spiritual growth is happening. You know, I feel a little bit like this little sprout coming up out of that dry ground. And next thing you know, a deer comes along and pulls you right out, roots and all, right? And that's no good. So what we're going to take a look at is as we consider Jesus' words and as we learn like why he came and what he's challenging people around him to do today, my hope is that we see that to cultivate our hearts and to prepare our hearts for this uprising, we need to pay close attention to what he's saying and how he's saying it. And today, as we're looking in the Gospel of Mark, remember Mark was one of the first writers to write down the accounts of Jesus, and he was a man of action, and so he saw Jesus as a man of action, so he's portraying Jesus as moving very quickly from one event to another event. He doesn't take a lot of time to discuss long speeches that Jesus made, or any of the disciples made, or anything else like you might see in some other gospel writers. Mark had one job, to show Jesus as a man of action that came to rescue the world. And so he's got these little snapshots. But today, he kind of slows down a little bit. Mark chapter 4, and he presents this parable. And it's one of the first parables that we see in the New Testament, especially in Mark. One of the first parables, and it's one of the more in-depth parables that Mark even talks about, because there's some keys in the parable that we're going to look at about all parables, and also about being the kind of people that are cultivating our hearts so that we're prepared to receive the uprising that Jesus is going to put in there. So Mark chapter 4, we're going to look at verses 1 through 20, but we're going to skip part of that, and you'll see why here in a second. We've got a lot of work to cover. But Mark wanted us to know this, and this is a pretty in-depth parable for Mark to cover. So here we go. Mark chapter 4, verses 1 through 20. This is what it says. Again, and again, and again, and again, Jesus is shown as this teacher that's moving around and constantly teaching people. And this time, he's at a lake. He was before. He must have used lakes frequently in his teaching so that large numbers of people could gather around to hear. It says, again, Jesus began to teach by the lake. And the crowd that gathered around him was so large that he got into a boat and sat in it out on the lake. And while the people were along the shore at the water's edge. There's some transition happening here by the 4th chapter of Mark. Mark jumps in and gets going. The transition's happening. Before, remember, Mark set up the stage as Jesus was in Capernaum, which was kind of his headquarters, and he would go to the synagogues and teach Sunday after Sunday, or Saturday after Saturday then. But now we see that Mark is kind of exploring this idea of now he's doing these open-air teachings more often. There's a couple of interesting things that stick out. Large crowds are gathering. And as his popularity increases, guess what else happens? His opposition's increasing as well. So he's not even really welcome back in the synagogues anymore. The religious leaders are out to get him. They don't like what he's teaching, and they don't like that he's teaching kind of against them and what they know. Jesus is teaching relationship, not a bunch of rules. And they don't like it. And so he goes outside because he's limiting the religious leaders' influence in terms of his teaching and the society at large. They're pretty influential people, but Jesus is saying anyone's welcome, and they're going to be overrun by the numbers of people. And he's trying to reach as large of a crowd as possible. One of the things that I love about this church specifically is it's not like any other church in town, in that most people are not super uncomfortable to show up here. Some are, and I get that. But we've got all types of people here. All types of people here. And they want to come because it's relaxing. It's not like your normal church. And I think that Jesus had encountered the same thing. The people that he's trying to reach are not the people that are going to show up in synagogues anyway. You hear me? They're not church people. And that's okay. He's trying to gather as large a crowd as possible, and he's not doing it by making them come to him. He's going to them and saying, here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. Now, the other interesting thing. Okay, so he's preaching outside to gather as large numbers of people as possible. Sometimes I try to talk too fast, and things don't catch up. And he's trying to he's trying to limit the religious leaders' influence. Thank you. But it also says that he sat in the boat. Why do you think he sat in the boat? Because of the wave? I mean, right, Randy? Trying to stand up in a boat is not an easy feat to do, but this guy could walk on water. So that probably wouldn't have been too hard, would it have been? By sitting down, Jesus is sending a message that he is moving into the sphere of being a religious teacher. Because that's what they would do. They wouldn't walk around or stand behind a podium like we see a lot of preachers doing today. He probably would find this really cool hip stool to sit on in the boat. No, but religious leaders would sit before their audience, and that would kind of indicate that there was some authority that they were bringing with them, some wisdom that they were bringing into. And this is kind of the first time that Mark has given us a glimpse to that. So that little word, sat in it, is kind of something that we miss, but this is really important to their culture. He's saying, I'm declaring to you something. Now watch what he does. Not only is he saying by his body language that he's declaring something to him, he's saying he taught them many things in parables, and in his teaching said, listen. Verse 2 and 3. He taught them many things by parables, and in his teaching he said, listen. There's a older preacher that's out there in the Atlanta area that's been well known, and his son is super popular in church circles. But when this guy preaches, and he's got this huge church in Atlanta, he always says, listen, okay, listen. He's constantly saying, listen to this, listen to this, listen to this. And it's so funny because if you're not really paying attention, you don't realize how many times he says it in a message. But if you're like me, eventually it kind of gets, and you're like, how many times is he and you start doing little 13, 14, 15, right? 16 times. He's saying, listen, but why is he doing that? To get people to pay attention, because what he's going to say is important. Jesus is doing the exact same thing. Maybe this guy learned it from Jesus from this very parable. Listen, He's sitting in the boat as a rabbi before them, as a wise teacher before them all, and he's saying, listen to me. What I'm about to tell you is important. Now, he starts off in the parable between verses 3 through verses 8. And we're going to skip that because it's repeated twice in this section of Scripture. We're going to come back to it in a minute, so you'll know more about thorny, rocky, and pathy soil than you ever wanted to know in a minute. But until then, we're going to keep going and skip over the parable as he explains it to all of the people that are gathered. Okay? Verse 9 says, Jesus says, whoever has ears, let them hear. Listen! Let me tell you this parable, and then he stops by saying, whoever has ears, let them hear. Both sides of that parable, he's setting up to them to pay attention. What he's saying is important. Listen. Whoever has ears, let them hear. Why is that important? We'll find out here in a second. It's okay to ask that question of yourself right now. Hopefully I'll answer it for you here in a minute. If not, you don't have to listen to me. See, I did that? Okay. You guys are like, who cares? Verse 10. So now, the disciples are part of this large crowd. All of these people are gathered around the lake. Jesus is sitting in the boat. He's saying, listen, whoever has ears, let him hear. Brackets the parable. And when he's alone, verse 10 says, the 12 disciples and the others around him ask him about the parable. And he tells them. You guys don't know that parable? Okay. So Jesus is like, the kingdom of God, he says. Or verse 11 says, he told them, the secret of the kingdom of God has been given to you. But those on the outside is said in parables. So you guys have the secret of the kingdom. But everybody else, I'm teaching in parables so that they don't know. Now, why is that important? Watch it. He says in verse 12, so that they might be ever seeing, but never perceiving, and ever hearing, but never understanding. Otherwise, they might turn and be forgiven. There's a secret about these parables. So what is a parable? Glad you asked. Maybe that was me. I know. Here's what parables are. Parables throughout the New Testament, and even some in the Old Testament, but primarily throughout the New Testament, are these messages, this information that's presented in a way that Jesus is trying to get the message across. Now, oftentimes in our modern society, maybe in theirs, I don't know, I didn't ask anybody, but oftentimes we're going to look into every little detail and interpret it to mean something. And details are not always emphasized in parables. Sometimes you're going to look at it and go, what's missing in that? That means that detail's not important to the message that Jesus is trying to teach. Okay? So there was a foolish guy who went out and he built his house on the sand. And a wise guy that went out and built his house on the rock. And the winds and the rain came, and guess which house fell? Well, what kind of house? What kind of foundation did they build underneath it? Where was it? Was it in Laguna Beach or was it someplace else? Like all of those kinds of details, Jesus is saying, doesn't matter. What matters is the message that I'm trying to teach you is what are you building the foundation on? Is it the sand that the world says is truth? Or is it the truth that's like a rock that I say is true? So the messages that Jesus is trying to speak to us are more important than the details. All right? So details are not always the emphasis. The illustration is conveying a message. Okay, what kind of house do you want to build? Well, I'd like a 3-story. Maybe roll-in access so we don't have to do any stairs on the first level, open concept. Is that what he's trying to tell you about that? No. Let me help you. No, that's not what he's trying to tell you. He's saying that what you build your life on is what matters, not how many garages you have. Okay? So the illustration conveys the message, and it's used to reveal God's truth in a form that's easily acceptable for all to understand. Right? Is that what that says? I'm just checking to see if you guys are tracking with me or thinking about lunch at this point. Okay?
No!
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. No! The truth that's being revealed is being revealed in such a way that it requires faith to understand it. You've got to believe that God's truth is the rock and should be the foundation to your house and to your life. If you don't believe that, build on whatever you want. Okay? If you don't believe that, then it doesn't matter. You're doing your own thing anyway. You're not listening to Jesus' truth because you don't think that that's the truth that you need to listen to. So illustrations and parables are designed to reveal truth requiring faith to understand. He has a large group of people following him. He also has a large group of people that are about to persecute and prosecute him. And so he's trying to be a little bit like cunning in how he delivers these messages. But as he's delivering the messages, what happens? The careless people that are in the crowd, people are like, oh, you know, life is good, everything's cool, I'm good. Wait, what did he just say? See, when you're careless, then all of a sudden, Jesus' teaching begins to kind of draw you in. He's arousing his spirit in you. He's calling you towards him. And he's saying, these are the important things that I want you to know about. And something inside of you goes, I used to be careless, but now I want to find out about this. What does this mean? Okay? So the messages arouse the careless and instructs the concerned, because people would have showed up this meeting going, Jesus is the Messiah, I believe 100% in him, I need to learn more, so tell me, Jesus, what to do. Like the disciples. Tell me. And they actually say, Jesus, can you explain this parable to us more? Like, we want more information here. Okay, here we go. You'll find that out in a second. I got to head there a little bit. So it instructs the people that are concerned, and it's concealing truth from people that are enemies. They might use that truth to distort it or make him look bad. Trish has this saying, when people are sharing different things, we know people's natures, right? And sometimes they're not always good. And she always says to friends of hers that are, going to walk into these conversations being like, I'm going to bare my soul. And she's like, hey, that's great. But don't give people ammo to shoot you with later. Because it happens, right? You share this deep, dark secret or truth with somebody, and then you don't really know their character, and 3 months later, they're like stabbing you in the back with it, or, of course, you don't stab people in the back with bullets, but in this illustration, like not to mix metaphors, like you don't give people ammo to shoot you with later, unless you know that they're trustworthy, unless you know their character. And Jesus knew. He knew who was among the crowd. So he's saying these parables in ways that people that are faith-based will get. People that are seeking God will get. People that are opposing God will not get. Will not get. It's an important literary genre in the New Testament. 1/3 of Jesus' teaching comes in the form of parables. So if all of this is true, guys, it tells us that how we approach Jesus' teaching matters. And if we have ears to hear and hearts that are open, and we seek his word and say, Jesus, please show me your truth. I might have been careless before, but I want to be aware now. I might have been careful and concerned, but now I really want to know. See, those are the hearts that we need to approach his word and his teaching and preaching and worship music and friendship and small groups and church life with. Okay. If we understand these parables in this way, then Jesus says, verse 12, here's why I use parables to teach people, so that they may be ever seeing but never perceiving, and ever hearing but never understanding. Otherwise, they might turn and be forgiven. This is a quote that he's pulling right out of the Old Testament, like hundreds of years before was given to God's people through a prophet. And Jesus saying, I'm here to fulfill this word. And this word is that people will preach the word of God, including Jesus, God's Son himself. And some people will hear it and not understand it, and see it and not perceive it. Because if they did, then they would turn and be forgiven. Those can be some pretty harsh words, can't they? And God's basically saying, man, how you approach me is up to you. I'm going to put this information out here, but your heart is the key to all of this. Where is your heart? See, if you're absolutely determined not to believe God, He's not going to force you to. If you're determined not to believe Him, then you're not going to understand some of this stuff, and you're going to continue living your own life. In your own way, doing your own thing, and hey, that's great. But if you're determined to believe, if you're determined to believe God and His Word, then man, your life is going to start to change. You're going to turn to Him, you're going to seek Him more, and all of a sudden you find this forgiveness that He offers through His Son Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. You're like, man, my life can't possibly be the same. We've got to keep going, and we're not going to accomplish everything that we need to accomplish today. Wish you guys would stop interrupting.
Sorry.
Maybe that's just me. Verse 13. Then Jesus says to them, don't you understand this parable? Because again, if the heart is what determines understanding or not understanding, then Jesus needs to be concerned. Who am I leading here? But the simple fact that they said, Jesus, we want to know more. Please show us more. Remember last week we talked about, you take one small step to God and He moves heaven and earth to reach down to you. Like He takes the majority of the share and the responsibility to reach down to you. All you have to do is just show a little bit of interest. The disciples here are showing a little bit of interest. And Jesus is just meeting them right where they're at. Okay, let me explain this to you. Do you understand? You don't understand? Okay, how will you understand any parable? I need to explain it to you. So here's the parable. The farmer goes out to sow seed. Well, we're going to stop right there. Who's the farmer and what does that mean? In this case, the farmer is God, the Spirit, somebody that's spreading God's information, God's love, God's word, whether it's through reading or teaching or preaching or just relating with somebody else or meeting needs, like that is spreading God's word, his powerful word out into the fields. He's the one that's proclaiming Jesus. But what we're going to see here in a second is not all of the proclamation, not all of the words, not all of the seed sprouted and grew strong and bore fruit. It's pulled right out of the buckets in some cases, okay? Is it the farmer's fault? No. I'll answer that one for you. No, it's not the farmer's fault. See, the farmer cultivates and prepares and gets ready all of his property. All of it's tilled up and the soil's prepped and he's going to sow seed on all of it. And then what happens to the seed is up to that part of the property and the seed itself. But we know the seed is good because it's the Word of God. So what happens next? And the farmer can't see concealed ground conditions. All he can do is sow equally among the field and hope and pray that something happens with it. He gives all of his property an opportunity to respond. So, in all of his property, here's what Jesus is saying happens. The farmer sows the seed on his property. Verse 15 says, some people are like the seed along the path, where the word is sown, and as they hear it, Satan comes and takes away the word that was sown in them. Shouldn't the farmer have known better than to sow his seed on a path? I think that's a good question. Maybe you guys don't. Okay. Because honestly, like if you gave me a bunch of grass seed and said, here, go make the grass better, I would not go and spread the seed on the cement sidewalk out in front of the house. Would you? No. Come on, farmer. What are you doing? Right? Well, let me explain a little something. I told you, the farmer would cultivate the entire property. He would go through and till it and turn all of the soil over so that the seeds could take root. But these pathways weren't like clearly marked out cement trails that people would ride their bikes through. These pathways were footpaths that over time, people that were traveling from Joe's house to Bob's house through Larry's property would create kind of this tromp down area. You've seen it. It still happens today. That's why you tell your neighbor's kids to stay out of your grass. right? Back here along this hill line, there's a deer path where the deer just over time have walked and trampled it down over in Palmer Park when I used to go over there and run. I don't run anymore. You guys need to tell me to run more often. There would be places on that trail where you're on the trail and then there would be signs where clearly another path was stay off this trail. Sensitive habitation and reclamation process. I don't remember the exact words that they use, but basically there's don't, stay off. Well, here's what happened. The farmer would till all of this soil, he would sow all of this seed, and then over time, these paths would become worn back into his property through people using them. And Jesus is saying, man, the seeds, that some people are like seeds on this path where the word is sown, and as soon as they hear it, Satan comes and takes away the word that was sown to them. See, what's been given to you through the word and the Spirit of God and godly counsel through friends and circumstances that God prepares for you, if you are not careful, you can easily fall back into old routines and old patterns, and all of those things that were given to you in this fresh way, in this new experience, can turn into what it was before. You have to be on guard and aware of what's happening in your field. The powers of evil and temptation and self-righteousness keeps people from faithfully embracing Jesus and keeping to his teaching. That's one condition. How often are we given something and then we go back to the old way? Jesus says, Graham, watch out for that. And I stop watching. Well, I got to figure it out now. And before you know it, there's paths are worn right back through these areas that make the Word of God, the seed that's planted in my heart, unable to grow. And I lose what I have. Verse 16 says, that's just one. The path is one. Others, there's this other part, like seed sown on rocky places. They hear the word at once and receive it with joy, but since they have no root, they last only a short time. And when trouble or persecution comes because of the word, when trouble or persecution comes because of the word, they quickly fall away. If you try to plant something out here on this back hill area, you're not going to get much because there's rock throughout the whole thing. The only thing that really grows out there is cactus, maybe a weed or two, and pine trees. And the pine tree roots can kind of go down in between the harsh rocks. Everything else isn't going to grow at all unless it's a cactus, and typically they don't have very deep roots. So what is he saying to us in this? Well, let me take it out of agriculture and put it into something that you might understand. How many people do you know started a gym membership on January 1st? Y'all are laughing because you probably either know somebody or did it yourself, right? Because New Year's resolution, I'm going to be so good this year, I'm going to go work out every day. Right? Come on. And the first couple of weeks the gyms are packed, and then week 3 and 4 they're less packed, and by March, man, nobody's going to the gym anymore. Right? You might as well just take all the equipment out and do something different in there and then put them back up in January, because it's kind of how it goes. This is exactly what Jesus is saying to them. There are times in our lives when it seems like we're just more open and responsive to things of God, and he plants these seeds in our lives, and we're like, yes, that's awesome. My entire life is going to change. I'm going to rearrange my schedule, and everything's going to be perfect, and I'm going to be at the spiritual gym every morning at 6 a.m., and I'm lifting those spiritual weights, reading God's Word, and good things are happening, and then all of a sudden, you're like, boom, done. Right? Come on. See, a past decision will only carry you so long. When I was in high school, I've shared with you guys some of, I haven't given you gross details because that's just gross, but my life was not very good. It was always up and down, up and down, up and down. I grew up in church. My parents believed in Jesus, and so we would be in church as often as it would open, which really ticked me off. Mom was in choir, Dad would bring the sound stuff, and just always there, always there. And so I got lots of good teaching, but I had this rebellious spirit, and so there would be times when I'd fully embrace God. I'd be like this, yes, let's go, and then there would be times when I'm like, heck no, I ain't going, you know. And so I remember specifically one night in youth group, the youth pastor was challenging us for something, I don't even remember, and I remember looking around at all of my friends, because I had a lot of friends, because when you're the fun guy, you know, you get lots of friends. And so we were sitting there, and I was like, guys, let's do this. And I really challenged everybody else in the youth group, like, let's do this. I would do this, let's do this. I'll help do this, like whatever it takes. And I'm super excited. I was like, you know, the workout person on New Year's Day, like I'm in the gym, and it's day one, you know. And I'm like, yeah, let's go. And one of Trish's friends came up to me and said, Grant, I'm really worried about you. Like, this is great, but I don't believe that you're going to stick to it. And I was like, you jerk! And at the time it wasn't okay, it was something else. And I couldn't believe that she would say that. I was like, what the heck? Come on, I'm genuine. And in the moment I think I was. But she was right. Like 6 months later, we're sneaking alcohol to the rafting trip overnight camp out, and the youth leader's like, what are you doing? Nothing. You know? Why does it look like we're doing? Well, this is what it looks like. Yeah, that's probably what we're doing. The guy was new, and that was the only reason he didn't send us home to our parents. And none of us could believe that he did. He was out. Doesn't matter. But this guy's a pastor in Denver now, and he came and he and his wife had dinner with Trish and I not long ago, and he's like, why didn't you send us home? He's like, well, I was new and it wasn't that much. And I was like, that's what you think. You found part of it. I still didn't tell him that, right? But I just thought it was dumb. So anyway, where was I? Oh yeah. So the point here is, and I don't mean to make that kind of lifestyle sound fun, because it's only fun for a season, right? The point is, Trish's friend was right, because I didn't stick through to it. Like, the decisions that we make in the beginning are only going to last so long. And what God says is, folks, there's one thing that matters. It's perseverance and it's steadfastness. Those words that we love so much, it's ranked up there with discipline and judgment and conviction, right? Those are feel-good words on that emotional spectrum. But here's what I want to show you. From day one, when God created, through Revelation, when he says he's coming again to restore, he uses a word to describe his love through all of the Old Testament and all of the New Testament. It changes because the language changes in there. But in the beginning, there's this word, and some of your Bible translations call it steadfast love. He says, I love you with a steadfast love, which is this loyal love. It's this committed love. It's this love that says, Graham, no matter what you're involved in your life, I am there, and I love you. And I'm like, God, I understand when you love me when I'm doing good, because everybody gets that. Like, if I want love from you, I'm going to be a good person, and you're going to love me more. Yes? Sing God. God says, yeah, I love you when you're good, but you're not good because you're good. You're good because I love you. And I love you when you're bad. And I'm like, really, God, because I can be pretty bad. I can be pretty stinky, pretty broken, pretty gross. He's like, I know who you are. Like, yikes. God knows who I am. He says, I've loved you, steadfast, loyal, committed, covenantal love. And it will not change. And then he says, and I want you to love me like that. Man, how? I can't do it alone. We only do it with his help. He's like, I know. We don't get love the way that God gets love. See, a lot of us are like these seeds sown on rocky places. We get super excited in the beginning when it's all good, and God's like, rain down blessings in your life. And like, whoop, whoop, the blessings come down, right? You guys know what I'm talking about? Was I close? Kinda.
Just like Chance.
Yeah, Chance. Chance the rapper has a song. Don't listen to it if you haven't heard it already. Okay? So we're great with God. We're great with God when. But then as soon as it gets hard, see, guys, I want you to see, I love you through the hard. I want you to love me through it too. Faith and perseverance and faithfulness and steadfastness with God. He said, I want you to love me with all of your heart, your soul, and your mind, and your strength. And the reason that he says that is because he loves you with all of his heart and his soul and his strength and his mind. That's pretty amazing love, isn't it? Pretty amazing love. Still others, verse 18 says, are like seeds sown among the thorns. They hear the word, but the worries of this life, the deceitfulness of wealth, and the desires for other things come in and choke the word out, making it unfruitful. Cherie was in here earlier. She's got her botany degree or some crazy thing like that. I mean, she loves plants, right? She can tell you about, everything you ever wanted to know about a plant. She's like a walking plant encyclopedia. And so there are times when I'm like, hey, Cherie, look at this. Is this a weed? She goes, Graham, you know what a weed is, right? Well, no. That's why I'm asking. Is it a weed or is it a plant? She says, a weed is a plant that's any plant that you don't want in any place you don't want it. Oh, man, that's an easy definition. Might be the prettiest weed you've ever seen in your life, but if it's in the wrong place and you don't want it there, pull it. Right? So what he's saying is, guys, there are good seeds, and the good seeds are scattered out into the field, but there are bad seeds out there too. And the bad seeds of life will grow up around the good seeds. And they're like weeds. They're the wrong plants in the wrong places, and they're going to choke out the good seed, because everything that is not God is going to compete with God. We're all in this garden looking at how much oxygen can we get, how much sunlight can we get, how much water can we get, how much nutrients from the ground around us can we get. And when the thorns and the weeds are right next to the plants and the good seed, it's tough. And what are the thorns? And what are the weeds? What are the things that are the wrong plants in the wrong places? He says the deceitfulness of wealth, the worries of this life, and the desire for anything that comes in other than God will choke out the good seed. He's not saying don't care about your children. He's not saying don't care about retirement. He's not saying don't care about your careers, don't care about your relationships, don't care about your fathers and mothers, don't care about your brothers and sisters, don't care about your reputation in the world. He's not saying that, because all of those things are important and we have to pay attention to those things. What he's saying is that anything that begins to compete or eclipse God in your life is a choking hazard. It's a choking hazard. And get it out. Objects of concern or attachment, even people that divert your attention away from God, is a weed. Wrong plant, wrong place. Watch out for that. He finishes and says, others, like seed sown on good soil, hear the word, accept it, and produce a crop. Some 30, some 60, some 100 times what was sown. What is the good soil? People that listen, people that hear and understand, people that hearts are attuned to what God's saying, people that are aware of what's happening. Let me ask you a question. How many of you saw Volvos on your way into church this morning? Okay, good question. Good question. We bought a Volvo a while ago. I thought Volvos were kind of cool, but we weren't really looking for a Volvo. We went to a car lot. This car was in our price range. We were like, let's drive it. I loved it. It's got a turbo. I mean, what's not to love? It's got a bow, right? And so, sorry, my mind goes to these weird places. Back in the 70s, there was a Volvo ad that I found. I don't know why. It's this Lamborghini with the U-Haul behind it. This is what we were going for. Okay, it was a Volvo ad. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. I love Lamborghinis. I don't like trailers. But a Volvo is like a Lamborghini with a U-Haul attached. Great, got it. Getting back to our regularly scheduled programming here. We bought a Volvo. Now, every time I drive anywhere in Colorado Springs, guess what kind of cars I see? Volvos. Even though Volvo makes less cars than any other major manufacturer out there. Most other car companies, doesn't matter what it is, make more cars per year than Volvo does. They just don't make a lot of cars. Sweden's a small country compared to everything else, right? But I see Volvos everywhere I go. Why? Because I have a Volvo. That's why. So go buy a Volvo today. No, I'm kidding. Here's the point. Listen. Listen. God says, listen. He who has ears to hear, let them hear. He or she who has eyes to see, let them see. When you're not looking for God, you're not going to find Him. When you're listening and looking for God, you will find Him. I promise you that to be true. I promise you. I wasn't looking for Volvos. Volvos found me. Once I got in a Volvo, it's all I see. That rhymed. God is here, and He's active, and He loves you with all of His heart, with all of His strength, with all of His soul, with all of His might. He asks you to love Him back. But what He says all along, if you want to have a cultivated heart, prepared for the uprising that I'm starting in you, listen. Are you listening for God's voice in your life? Are you looking for God, His actions, His power moving in your life? Where are you with that? Because you're not going to see anything that you're not looking for. You're not going to hear from Him if you're not listening for Him. But when you begin to, man, He will move heaven and earth to help you hear and to help you see.